I like the feel of 5th edition D&D, but I just find the character building flat, and the monsters are dull. So, like everybody else, I'm building my own TTRPG that I hope will feel like the good parts of 5e, but provide more interesting combats and give players way more options to make cool character builds right from the first level. One thing I've added to try to meet those objectives is the archetype system. Greetings, I'm Demonac. I animate tales for my D&D campaign and my new series, Sea of Secrets, but today I'm going to tell you about one system from my TTRPG, working title 5D RPG. If you want to see the early alpha rules, you can check out this ugly looking Google Doc at patreon.com/Demonac for a pledge of just $2 a month. Anyway, because the base of 5D RPG is to feel and play a lot like 5th Ed D&D, the main way you identify your character is probably your class and subclass, which you choose at level 1. We have 6 classes which should all be fairly familiar to Dungeons & Dragons people. Warrior, Berserker, and Striker mainly use weapons to fight, adding on weapon techniques, and their various class abilities to do cool tactical things, or just hit harder. Or both. Then we have Mage, Priest, and Vessel, who tend to use cantrips, at-will spells, in place of weapons, dealing different damage types, augmenting them in little ways with a spell-focus item, and then at a key moment, they can whip out a powerful sorcery spell to turn the tide of battle, except Vessel, who barely gets the big spells, but they boost the hell out of their cantrips to do other crazy things. With me so far? Great. But here's the difference we're looking at today. None of those classes describe how fast you move, how many hit points you have, what armor you can wear, how you survive on the battlefield. In 5D RPG, you choose that separately by choosing an archetype, also at level 1. Before anyone asks, no, this isn't a groundbreaking idea invented by me alone. Like all creative work, game development is about picking and choosing the best ideas you've seen, the ones that inspire you, combining them, and putting your own spin on them to make something new. In this case, I was inspired by one of MCDN's old game dev videos from their Draw Steel RPG. I haven't actually read Draw Steel, so let me know in the comments how my take compares with theirs. 5D RPG has 9 archetypes. Some may feel more weapony, others more castery, but you can pick any archetype for any of the 6 classes and make it work for you, if you try hard enough. Each archetype sets your character's movement speed, the heaviest armor and shields you can use, and has a huge impact on your hit points. Then, each has one ability that you choose from a short list, and gives you several other bonuses or abilities to play around with, because I want you to be able to play a literal tank mage if you want, or make your unarmed warrior an armored Juggernaut. But we need to balance those options against being a lightly armored skirmisher, or an unarmored duelist or magus. The archetypes are listed by armor proficiency, from heaviest down to lightest, so let's start with a detailed look at the tank archetype. I think we all know the heroic fantasy that tank is going for, whether a knight in shining armor or the party mom who will never let you hurt her friends. This is the character who can take hits, anything you throw at them, and defend their allies. Tank is the slowest archetype, with the terrible speed of 3 squares per round. It says 4 in brackets because the 3 square speed is including a 1 square speed penalty from wearing heavy armor. You can always wear lighter armor than your archetype allows, so if your tank has some dexterity, or just wants to move a little faster, going with medium armor is a totally valid choice, and that would get your speed up to 4, which is still slow. The tank in one of my playtest parties took the orc lineage for +1 speed, but that's a tale for another day. Next, we have base HP and hit points per level, HPPL. There's no constitution stat in 5D, so you get most of your hit points here, and a few extra from your class. Tank has 22 HP as a base, plus 3 HP per level, more than any other archetype except Brute. You do add HP per level even at level 1, and you'll get another 3 to 5 HPPL from your class, so at first level, a tank starts with between 28 and 30 total hit points. The reason HPPL is separated out from the base is that your hit points per level also affect how much you can heal during short rests, so a warrior or berserker with +5 per level can afford to take more damage per battle than a caster with +3 per level, even if their max HP looks similar at low levels. Back to tank though, we get heavy armor technique. Wearing heavy armor gives you 16 defense right off the bat, with no bonuses or penalties from dexterity. Dump stat, anyone? Though you do need a strength of 1 to wear heavy armor without penalty, so if you are building a tank mage and don't want strength, that's another reason you might pick medium armor, which gives 14 defense plus half your dex rounded down. Your armor technique also determines what shields you can use, so Tank and Juggernaut can access all the juiciest shields, though big shields often require even more strength to use. Skipping to the unique benefits at the end here, you'll see that the tank's layered defense ability gives them +1 defense and +1 shield rating as long as they wear medium or heavy armor. Currently, I'm designing 5D to have 12 character levels, and most archetypes get some upgrade at 6th level. In the tank's case, they get even more shield rating. Shield rating, or SR, is an extra defense in this system that reduces the damage you take from certain things you can't avoid. Like when you succeed at a save for half, we call that half damage auto damage, because you can't avoid it. Shield rating would reduce that otherwise unavoidable damage. Or, if you have to run through a bonfire cantrip to reach the enemy, SR will help protect you from that damaging terrain. Some light armored characters may have just as good a defense as medium or heavy armored ones, but they will lack the protection against auto damage that comes from heavier armor and shields. Anyway, the other, much cooler tank benefit is their Protect ability. When an ally within 2 squares is damaged by an attack, and I mean any attack, weapons, spells, whatever, the tank can spend their reaction to swap places with that ally, and you take the damage instead of your friend, which is extra cool if it's auto damage that your shield rating would reduce, where your squishy Magus friend has no shield rating and would take the whole amount. And this ability to launch yourself into harm's way is also my excuse for giving tanks such terrible speed. You don't necessarily have to lead the charge, as long as you can get close enough to your friend. So those two benefits are unique to tank, but each archetype also gets a choice, a short list of archetype abilities in this column. The tank gets to pick one of these 4. Harass lets you mark an enemy you hit with a melee strike. That creature has until the end of their next turn to deal damage to you somehow. If they fail to do so, and you're still next to them, you hit them for auto damage equal to your weapon's base damage die, which could be 1d8 if you're wielding sword and board, or as big as d12 from a heavy weapon if you don't mind tanking without a shield. Best of all, if they intentionally try to move away from you, even with some slippery ability to avoid opportunity attacks, the harass mark goes off and deals the damage anyway. Instead of harass, you could choose lockdown, which lets you make opportunity attacks without spending your reaction. That's right, you could get a free attack on each enemy dumb enough to walk past you. And you can't safely run circles around enemies like in D&D 5e. In 5D RPG, if you are threatened by an enemy and you move anywhere, that provokes an attack. Lockdown not only lets you make those attacks up to once on each enemy's turn, but also lets you save your reaction for something else, like your Protect ability. Why would you ever not take Lockdown? Well, can I interest you in just an extra reaction? It might be hard to convince a lot of enemies to move past you like idiots for Lockdown, but with extra reaction, you have 2 reactions every round instead of 1 to use however you want, except that you can never use the same reaction twice on the same creature's turn. Very cool. Or, as a last option for tank, if you are building a spellcaster tank, or maybe you got an attack cantrip from your lineage or something, Point Blank Magic lets you add casting attribute to damage with melee range cantrips. Usually that's +2 or +3 damage, which you might be adding to an area cantrip like Blaze, or it might mean you're adding your CA twice on a single target melee cantrip. Anyway, there's one last column here, which are any extra archetype abilities that you get. In Tank's case, they get Guard, which improves their block action and gives them the choice to give their shield's defensive stats to an adjacent character instead of themselves. So that's the kind of stuff you get from a 5D archetype. I'm going to try to zip through the other 8 quickly so you can see why each one is cool and why would anybody choose an unarmored archetype when it's separate from your class abilities? Juggernaut is for those people who want heavy armor, not so they can tank for their allies, but just so they can barrel headlong into danger like an unstoppable force. Speed 4 is still slow, though again, that's including the penalty for heavy armor. If they go medium armor, the Juggernaut's up to speed 5, which is perfectly average. They have solid hit points, and similar ability options to the tank, though they can get counterattack, which, just like it sounds, lets you spend a reaction when somebody hits you to attack them right back. Their special abilities are Advancing, which gives them bonus damage on melee strikes as long as they move at least 3 squares away from where they started their turn. Note, Strike in 5D means any attack with a to-hit roll, as opposed to saving throw attacks. Advancing doesn't specify weapon strikes, so it totally works with cantrips like Shocking Grasp or Icy Touch. Then they have Momentum, which lets them resist 1 square of forced movement whenever an enemy tries to push or pull them, but also adds 1 to any forced movement they create. The Whirlwind archetype is for characters who just want to dive into the thick of combat and slash their way out like a Wolverine. Speed 5, medium armor, little less hit points than those heavy guys, though 4 HPPL is quite a good amount for short rest healing. You can choose counterattack, harass, or point-blank magic. You get Slippery for free. That's the ability to spend 3 movement points to move 1 square without provoking attacks. Handy for getting away or getting deeper into the fray, because Whirlwind gets bonus defense while wielding 2 weapons and or spell focus items, and most importantly, they get Counter Slice. Once per round, when they get hit in melee, they can make a free counterattack with a swift weapon. That's actually free, no reaction. If they have counterattack, they could spend their reaction to do both. And note, at 6th level, this ability upgrades from once per round to once per turn, meaning you could counterattack every creature that hits you in melee. Vanguard has averagey speed and average to low hit points, medium armor. They can choose Slippery if they want, or Harass or Lockdown, or they can choose Extra Quick. That's a second quick action every round, like having an extra bonus action in 5th edition. Pick one of those, then for free they get Guard and Extra Concentration. They can concentrate on 2 spells at once, but their real amazing power is called Mutual Magic. Whenever a Vanguard targets another creature with a spell or combat maneuver, they can choose to have that ability affect themselves in addition to the usual targets. Healing Word your friend? Heal yourself too, as a bonus. Cast True Strike on your ally, which is way cooler than 5th Ed True Strike. This True Strike cantrip makes the target's next weapon strike deal 1 extra die of damage if it hits, significantly improves the chance to crit, and if it misses, the target can spend their reaction to reroll. So you could True Strike your friend and yourself and use that bonus on your next turn if you have a weapon. There aren't as many combat maneuvers that buff, but there are some, especially for tactician warriors. Mutual Magic is such a great power that it doesn't need a level 6 upgrade, and I just gave Vanguard an extra skill technique instead of another unique benefit. Brute is for the heroic fantasy of that character who just keeps getting hit but refuses to go down. They only have light armor, defense 12 plus dex, but they have the most hit points, even more than tank, and freaking 5 HPPL. If they got warrior or berserker for another 5 from class, they could start with max HP as high as 33 and heal just a ridiculous amount on short rest. They also get Shrug Off, which gives them +2 or more shield rating as long as they wield a 2-handed weapon, helping those hit points stretch even further. And they get Power Attack. Before rolling any strike, they can choose to take -5 to hit, +5 damage, and an extra +5 damage if they crit, though most crits in 5D come from beating the target's defense by 10, whereas with -5 to hit, you probably only crit on a natural 20. Again, this is any strike. You could be a brute mage, power attacking with Firebolt from 20 squares away and wielding a Staff Focus, which is a 2-handed spell focus item that also counts as a weapon, meaning it qualifies for the brute's shield rating bonus. Skirmisher is your more traditional light armor adventurer. With the excellent speed of 6 and evasion for dex saves, you are trying to survive via maneuverability. For that reason, they get Passing Strike. Whenever they hit a creature with a strike, that creature cannot use opportunity strikes or any other reaction until the end of that turn, so you can hit and run. Skirmisher also gets an extra quick action and martial training. They learn a combat maneuver at level 1, the same kind of thing a 5e Battlemaster fighter does, or any warrior or berserker in 5D. They only have one maneuver die, but at the end of any battle, if all their dice are spent, they get one back. So it's really one die per fight, it's just worded so it isn't broken when combined with a combat maneuver class. Skirmisher's ability choices are pretty aggressive, including the option of taking Sniper. If there are no enemies within 3 squares of you, Sniper lets you spend 4 squares of movement to make your next range strike ignore shield rating and damage resistance. Bam! Then, we have the 3 unarmored archetypes. They aren't proficient in any armor or shields, so their defense is only 10 plus dex, which means they better get some kick-ass stuff in exchange, right? One of my playtest parties, without any coordination, actually picked one of each of the unarmored archetypes. Duellist is for the heroic fantasy of the quick, skilled master of single combat. But of course, that doesn't have to be a martial artist. You could be a duelist swordsman, or berserker, or even a spellcasting duelist. You get speed 6, a good amount of hit points, though still less than tank or Juggernaut. But Duellist gets evasion for strength saves, which includes anything that would be a strength or constitution save in D&D, and they automatically get extra reaction, which they will probably use to power their Deflect Attack ability, an idea inspired by my friend Bone Wizard's homebrew monk buffs. Whenever the Duellist takes physical damage, they can spend a reaction to reduce the damage by 1d6 plus dex plus 2. And the 2 is their training bonus, which scales up at levels 5 and 9. There's no resource cost, they can do that as long as they have a reaction. Additionally, as a free action at the start of each turn, the Duellist chooses one creature they can see to be their opponent. They add that training bonus, so plus 2, to their defense and to all saving throws against anything their chosen opponent does to them. Next up is the Destroyer, aka Glass Cannon, though every other archetype was a single word name. Destroyer also has speed 6, but they have the worst hit points, only 14 plus 1 per level, and that's crappy healing too. However, the Destroyer adds their intelligence, probably plus 2 or plus 3, to all saving throws. They have evasion for int saves, and they get extra concentration and an extra quick action per turn, which they can use for their quick dodge ability. That's right, they can effectively dodge, give all strikes against them disadvantage, every turn for free, unless they want to do 2 other quick actions. Their defense is bad, which in 5D makes them easier to crit, but as long as they are quick dodging every turn, it sort of evens out. So all that keeps the squishiest archetype from dying too easy, but they're still squishy. What they really get in exchange is a free damage-dealing cantrip and an Augment Cantrip ability. Augment Cantrip is a class feature casters normally get at levels 5 and 10, kind of a replacement for the warrior's extra attack, noting that in this system cantrips don't gain an extra damage die at those levels. Each augment does something different, but they include options like forking your single target cantrips to hit a second target within 3 squares, or widening your cantrips that affect an area. The 5D Bonfire, actually part of Control Flames cantrip, already affects 2 squares, but with Widen, you could hit 4 contiguous squares with a cantrip. I don't think it's broken, but it's a very tempting trade-off for being squishy, really living on the edge. Finally, we have another mostly castery unarmored archetype, the Magus. Magus has speed 5, averagey hit points, and they have to choose between extra quick action or extra reaction. Both awesome powers. Then they get extra concentration and minor concentration, meaning they could concentrate on up to 3 spells at once, as long as one was something minor, like a Detect Ritual or Bless. That's pretty good stuff, but how does Magus not die? 3 things. First, with Mystic Defense, as long as they wield a spell focus, they get to add their will stat to defense, +2 or +3, which already gives them as much or more defense than light armor, though without shields. Then, they get the Repel reaction. They gain a weapon technique, either pushback, sap, or hamstring, and then as a reaction, anytime they're hit by a melee strike, they can use that weapon tech on the attacker. With pushback, you could literally push away an enemy who hit you, or with sap, you could give disadvantage on their next attack. Finally, Magus gets a once per short rest reaction. That's once per encounter in 5D RPG. It's called Deflect Magic. When they take non-physical damage, like fire, lightning, decay damage, etc., they can spend this reaction to reduce the damage by 1d6 plus int plus will. This amount scales up by 2d6 at levels 4, 7, and 10, and they can recover this ability when they cast a sorcery spell. So you can reduce a good chunk of energy damage once per battle, plus an extra time per spell slot you cast in between. So those are the archetypes of 5D RPG, to mix and match with classes and subclasses, plus a bunch of other character options even at level 1, which mean a first level character in this system has more of a build than a third level character in 5th ed D&D. If you're interested in seeing the rest of my 5D RPG, work in progress, you can access the whole player side rules at patreon.com/Demonac for $2 a month, or $4 if you also want to see the folder of foes and other Game Master side stuff. This is mostly just a fun side project though. I love storytelling, adapting and animating the events of some great D&D campaigns I ran with my friends. So if you like fast-paced D&D storytelling, including the in-character story and the out-of-character fun, check out Tales from My D&D Campaign and my new Sea of Secrets series on my main channel, youtube.com/Demonac. And I could never do this kind of stuff full-time without the generous support of my Patreon patrons, especially the members of the organization.